We will move on to the panel session as discussed, and I'll be joined by Alfonso from Salnex, Stefano from Mavenir, and Frederic from Acceleran. We want to focus the discussion on what opportunities and challenge Open RAN will bring to the UK. And I'll start off by inviting our three panel members to introduce themselves. Stefano, would you like to talk about Mavenir's involvement with Open RAN and Sonic so far?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Jessica, and thanks for everybody for inviting us here. Well, first of all, I'm Stefano Cantarelli. I'm the CMO at Mavenir, UK-based. Mavenir is an end-to-end software cloud native supplier, and also in Open RAN as a very strong driver in the last years. We have been involved in the UK with UK government, DCMS, Ofcom, and Digital Catapult for some time, and our role is, as Dritten has explained, we are a provider of Open RAN, vRAN integrated for some of the chains. Last thing I would say really is that Mavenir is strongly focused in the mission to bring virtualization everywhere in the world, because we believe that virtualization that helps to open up the market and to boost competition, because we think competition is innovation, which I think is very much in line with what I heard from everybody here. And of course, we have been strong knights holding the flag of open interfaces with the same reason, because we do really need a diversification of the supply chain worldwide, not just in the UK. The fact that we have been doing things until today in a certain way doesn't mean that in the future will have to be done in the same way. So that's what it is in a nutshell, Mavenir. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Stefano. And Alfonso, over to you.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity. I'm Alfonso Alvarez. I am Deputy Managing Director for Salnex in the UK. And as you probably know, Salnex UK, we are an infrastructure operator providing passive infrastructure mainly to the mobile operators and also to the enterprise market. For us, Open RAN and Sonic is a great initiative. It's something that could unleash different business models in the future. And for us, being a neutral host, it's a very interesting way to explore new alliances, new collaborations for things like indoor coverage, in which we are very active as well. We really think that this open interfaces, new paradigm or ecosystem should also foster savings and economies that the operators will like to apply. Probably in the beginning, as with any other technology disruption, the operators were hesitant and waiting for news to happen, and let's discuss about it during the panel, but probably there's a common understanding now in the industry about the value that initiatives like Open RAN first, maybe virtual RAN in the future, etc., should bring to the operators first, creating synergies, creating opportunities, for them to use their budgets in a smarter, in a smarter way. And as Salnex, we want to be part of that. Okay, so probably we are not, as Mavenir or any other member of the initiative, a technological company aiming at manufacturing products or being part of the value chain. But as a neutral host, we really think we could be using or leveraging on these new technologies for supporting the industry, supporting our customers. And the last point is 5G is not only about MNOs, it's also about private networks, and we are also very active there. So probably Open RAN is the right combination of new technologies, disruptive models, open interfaces, and we really think there's value there, and Sonic will lead it in the UK. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfonso. And Frederic?
Yes, good morning, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to present AccelRAN here as well. I guess we are the smallest party here on the table, which I think in the context of this event, that's a good thing to say, as a few things that have been said by the first presenters is also to promote new players in the RAN market. So we appreciate that very much, to give us the stage to show off our technology and what we have done so far in promoting Open RAN. So maybe a few words about AccelRAN, because maybe a bit less known compared to my colleagues here on the table. So we've been created back in 2013 to really focus on software for the RAN. So we're about softwareization since our inception, I would say. The team has a lot of history in the RAN space, and basically also in integration and test. So we see software as products, not just as a software stack. We see each of our components as a product on its own. We're mainly based in Belgium headquarters, but we have quite some UK links and UK development as well. So very close to the UK market. We're currently close to 40 people, and we have our software runnings in embedded system 4G, but foremost in the context of what we're talking here, designed to be containerized, cloud native, both 4G and 5G. So from the start, we have componentized our software. So for us, a very natural way of being straight to containerization, control plane, user plane separations, distributed data to fuel automation towards the RIC and the XApps are things that are embedded in our architectures. We focused a lot on the higher layers, so we certainly are not coming with an end-to-end solution. We have been seeing the advent of virtualization and openness early on. So we focused on, I would say, three things: disaggregation, intelligence, and programmability of the RAN. And that leads automatically to what we call now altogether Open RAN. So we're very happy with that evolution. We've been part of this initiative from the start, when it was called XRAN, before it was called ORAN, and before, let's say, the last, I would say, 18 to 24 months, we get in a more mnemonics, I would say, convergence of all the initiatives that has been taking over the years. So we see really Open RAN as a solution going forward, to open up monolithic enclosed systems and adhering to cloud native technologies, IT deployment principles. And as somebody was saying earlier, we think it's unstoppable and it's unavoidable. It's a matter on how to make it work for the RAN specifically as well. We have pioneered all that in different environments. So just to finish on that, if I may, Jessica. So we're part of ONF, we're part of TIP. We have been a T company, or we are a T company also, the context of TIP and BT, where our platform has been used for developing XApps already. And we're happy to be part now of the Sonic as a next step to show end-to-end system of truly interoperable parties of the chain.
Thank you very much for outlining your involvement so far. Slightly different angles from everyone, which is great to see. So the first question that I want us all to kind of think about is who the winners are going to be with the migration to Open RAN. You know, do we see it as new vendors, operators, governments and regulators meeting policy objectives, or mature vendors repositioning themselves in a new value chain, or all of the above? So yeah, keen to hear your views on that. Does anybody want to jump in? Stefano's going.
I can start. The answer is very easy. Everybody. We said that before. Open interfaces means more competition, and competition means innovation. And so the winner out of these will be, first of all, the users, you know, because remember, we all do these for people, right? For providing services to companies, people, you know, everybody. And of course, winner will be also companies like operators, enterprises, and so on, because they will be able to leverage their businesses wherever is the direction of the business. As Frederick has mentioned before, one of the good things of competition is that you're able to introduce new vendors. I mean, innovation, it cannot be driven just by a few companies, especially when the few companies are also locking in the commercial, because we're not talking about that here, but it's a fundamental component. And open interfaces has been, a strong driver. But I also want to underline that the virtualization, which is intrinsically inside some of the solutions that we are talking here, because they're not just open, they're also virtualized, is the key feature, is that ability, that agility that today a lot of the businesses in telecom don't really have, and they have been admiring some of the hyperscaler and some of the internet players, to be able to automate their business, which means everybody will win. Users will get more services more faster. Enterprises will be able to do their businesses with a different speed. Operators will be able to save money and be able to be faster to market. And finally, of course, vendors will be able to get in the market and find their niche business, because in some cases, there will not be just the, and I mentioned them, just the Ericsson or the Nokia of the world. Some of our company, including Mavenir, we are not aiming to become an Ericsson or a Nokia, not because we think is bad things by themselves, but it's just because the model in an open environment is completely different. It's about an ecosystem, boosting the ecosystem. And we believe that there will be a lot of opportunities, not only for software vendors, but also for hardware vendors. And we have been talking about, RRUs, which is one of the key components in the radio space for RAN solutions, including Open RAN. There's always some frequencies, some specific RRUs that maybe don't have a huge volume, but it could be a big business for a small company. So that's really what my answer is in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you. Frederick, you're off mute. Oh, Alfonso as well.
Yeah, sure. No, I think as Stefano said at the beginning, it's a very broad set of winners that we should expect, right? And I think at the end of the day, it's probably digital transformation and end user that should be the final winners. But I think what is fair to say is that we see the value chain shifting in the process of going to Open RAN, and how the puzzle will be laid again is still to be seen. But the advent of more software defined, but again, agreeing with Stefano also on the hardware, we should not forget about that. That's clearly still an essential piece of the Open RAN. But the more we go to software defined and IT based, driven by TCO, driven by innovation or other drivers, it will have this vendor diversity emerging. I would maybe specify one role that I think is critical that might be seen as a winner, or where we need to keep an eye on is the integrator role of an Open RAN, which should be something that is probably segregated from all the Open RAN components as well, to keep the true ambition of Open RAN being best of breed componentry and integration of all that into systems for specific use cases or specific go-to markets. And to keep Open RAN alive, I think the integrator role is a very important one to understand and to figure out how they will fit in the value chain of the future in Open RAN compared to the current RAN models.
Yeah, agree on the integrator role. Alfonso.
Difficult to add value to what my colleagues have clearly explained. I think that, technology is a mean, is not good by itself. So what we all understand as the values coming from Open RAN and this new ecosystem, open interfaces, etc., should be doing more things with the same money. So the operators, but also private companies deploying their own networks, etc. There's also, I think, sorry, I think something happened with the microphone, which is creation of value in the UK. That should be also one of the initiatives we should pursue. And I know Sonic has this priority among the bunch of things to consider this initiative as a success. And that means all this new ecosystem should deploy opportunities for software companies, for, why not, hardware manufacturers, and I would call this reindustrialization. this is all coming with 5G, and 5G is a completely new ecosystem in terms of mobile. We are deploying different bands. We are deploying many other sites for covering the territory, but we are all thinking of 5G as a technology which will make possible new use cases in which latency is very, very low. And this is probably connected with industrialization, okay? So Open RAN should make it possible, should reduce costs for this adoption of 5G as the killer application for, or killer technological mean for a lot of industries to transform their processes and automatically creating jobs and ensuring their future. So I think there's an angle here which is not only technology, it's not only software or hardware interface, it's value for money.
Great, thank you very much. So the next question I've got for our panel members is, why do facilities like Sonic matter to vendors, and what should they be including to accelerate Open RAN deployments?
Well, maybe we use the same term. For me, it's quick. These initiatives are meant to explore the operability and what does it mean actually to have an Open RAN or an open network. So it's always good to be into these initiatives, because this is not about demonstrating or showing how good you are. This is showing how it works and what are the potentials, and to show clearly to some of the organization in the government like DCMS what really you can do. I have seen it when when I have simply I've been lucky to participate in a public hearing about some of these matters, and sometimes you realize that the more ideas you bring on the table, the more people realize where the path is. So these initiatives, in my opinions, are always useful to understand really which are the direction, because as usual, we need to remember that in the telco, in the mobile and so on, it's not just about maturity of technology. We need to remember that also we need to have the maturity to be able to implement them. And sometimes this actually takes more time. In my 30 years in technology has always been much faster than to mature than the rate of the adoption of the technology itself. And believe me, I've done it as a supplier, as an operator, from fixed network to mobile network is always the same. So all these kind of initiatives are good to demonstrate how we can use these technologies, how we can take advantage, and to foster, the different path to actually create more innovation. That's really what I think.
Okay, thank you.
Well, if I can add a bit to that, I think besides the obvious fact that bringing new vendors into this equation is, of course, of benefit for a company like us, I think it definitely shows that the RAN does not need to be end-to-end, and that this integrated role that I mentioned before will be very important, and that needs support in the first phase. We're talking here about, I would say, a paradigm shift. And if you mention that sort of heavy words, you are going against a bit of the ruling market forces. And in that context, having Sonic governmental and regulatory support in a number of initiatives at the early days of such initiatives, promoting integration, promoting open interfaces, and basically promoting the fact that these open interfaces can work together is essential. I'm still hearing, or I'm hearing still now, quite pessimistic views as well in terms of the openness, and referring to IMS or even MEC as being slow progress in history. But here there is something very fundamentally different. It's driven by cloud, driven by IT principles, by virtualization principles that, as we said a few times, are unstoppable. So we need to promote that, and we firmly think that these kind of initiatives will further foster that market.
Well, again, difficult to add value to what Stefano and Frederick pinpoint. I think that, that's clear that there's a potential value for new vendors coming into this industry, and there's a new business opportunity. Also, maybe a challenge to the big vendors, but why not also an opportunity for them? And probably we are seeing how they are now moving slightly towards the potential concept. I mean, in Nokia and Ericsson. I think that what vendors should look at when they propose this new ecosystem is being key for the success of 5G as a first priority. And 5G will not be only RAN. 5G means also core, and means in the future network slicing. It means changing the whole network concept. So it's not easy for the operators, and it's perfectly understandable. It's not easy to change their mindset as well. It's not only about saving some money, it's also about changing all the technological approach and dealing with more than one supplier or more than two, which is the traditional approach, when they need to ensure a rollout in a limited timeline. I think this will be possible. The operators will accept that there's a value here, and maybe with more complicated procurement agreements with, more or many other vendors to be managed in the whole technological picture. In the end, there's a value, which is savings and more things to be done. But the main objective should be making 5G, the whole picture of 5G, possible as soon as we can. And that means the radio access network, but the next step is the core, 5G core, network slicing, virtualization. This is, I think, the real future, the real objective.
And you started to sort of outline it in some of your responses, but if we achieve open interface and widespread Open RAN deployment, what opportunity?
Jessica, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Oh, apologies. I was like, thank you very much for highlighting that. Sorry. Yeah. So, how do you see, Open RAN and achieving open interface in the RAN, sort of opening up other technologies like mobile edge compute and network automation? I know we've already touched on it, but how do we sort of square the circle in that?
I think there's an easy.
Alfonso, why don't you go first this time?
Yes.
Actually, it's a good idea, Alfonso.
Sorry, and here, I mean, this is clear, Jessica. I mean, as an infrastructure operator, everything will change or should change with RAN. Okay, so open interfaces will probably, surely mean different concepts at site level, freeing space, and also connected with the values of the technology, providing paving the way, let's say, for the adoption of edge computing. Clearly, I mean, so we all know the concepts that the 5G paradigm, let's say, contains. The massive MIMO, the radio part, but also the edge computing for the low latency and their core. We all know the concepts, okay? But with Open RAN, there's clearly a value which automatically is brought into the sites, into the telecom network. And this is also an important part, the passive infrastructure, because we will need to provide services with all this new ecosystem from the same sites and new sites to be developed. Urban furniture, we are also working on that. I mean, small cells, indoor, everything will be possible. Edge computing is clearly something, in our view as Cellnex, that should be fostered by Open RAN and similar agreements at industry level. Okay, and we are, working with all these new initiatives with an eye on the value we can provide. Okay, and the value as infrastructure operator goes beyond the pure space, goes towards the shared investment as well. Because when you open the interfaces, you can work with different vendors. Also, sharing equipment among operators is easier, okay? Because they don't play only with one or two vendors, and this makes all decisions about sharing things easier. And there's an additional value there, the value that us, the neutral hosts, can bring into the equation. Edge computing in our vision, is clearly value number one to be got from Open RAN.
Stefano, Frederic, to add?
Well, I think if I can pick one of the technologies that will clearly represent opportunities, certainly on the edge, as Alfonso was also mentioning, having very small footprint, CU, rigs, etc., that can be very easily really deployed on different edge or cloud locations will be a big element into it. And we see already today the small foot allowing to use the RAN as another application on even universal CPE kind of platforms. After SD-WAN or firewalls, etc., we see RAN application as being maybe the next application that is being asked for, up to even universal CPE, if you consider that also as sort of edge platforms. So that's interesting to see unlocked. And secondly, it's about the intelligence and the automation, as you were saying in your question, opening up the data in an open RAN, feeding the rig, feeding the XApps, for RAN optimization as such, but much broader than that for non-real-time applications, bringing in data from different elements will certainly fuel new ideas and innovation there. And some of them we might know, like energy efficiency, some of them to be discovered in an open ecosystem that will foster innovation.
Great, thank you. I'm going to move on to the next question in the essence of time, because we've got lots of questions coming in the Q&A, so I want to leave a bit of time to cover some of those off. But in the feedback that our audience gave, you know, we looked at timelines that Joe introduced at the beginning, you know, how long it will take to scale and get adoption, particularly in the UK. But I'm keen to hear from our panel members about what you think will hold the adoption of Open RAN back.
Who wants to go first?
We are deeply involved. Let me just very quickly. We are we are already involved in deployment in the UK. I think there's been publicly advertised by some of the operators. I think it is mainly about incentive to operator to think in a different way. You know, they the mindset, and they need to get over that mindset. Keep in mind that Frederic has been mentioning before virtual since 2000, and I think some of the initiatives like Sonic were missing in that space. That's why it probably took a long time for operator really to understand the value. And in fact, it actually happened once someone else has understood the value, like people like Google and so on. So once again, I understood how the mindset needs to be different. So the blockers, I think, is simply a mindset. As far as maturity, as I said, the technology is now there. I just want to add, you know, most of the people who developed this technology, they're not just brand new people who just have no clue what they're doing. They are people who've been in the industry, and they have been maybe developing radio for some of the traditional vendors. So, you know, it's really about use cases where we're gonna there, and 5G, as every new technology, as a new generation, it's about how we're gonna use it. You know, there is a lot of vibe, much more than in 4G, which really 4G was more about more speed and more capacity. And the 5G with the low latency, and there's a lot of interest in the industrial spaces and so on. So I do believe that private networks will go into it very fast. We have seen it across Europe, across the world, but operators are set to follow very quickly. As I said, it's just a mindset, and as a mindset, you know, once someone starts, then the others will follow very quickly. This is what I have seen everywhere in any time.
Excellent. Thank you. Anybody else got any other thoughts to add about what's going to hold adoption back, apart from changing the mindset of operators?
I think, Jessica, I know that the UK is now in a very particular situation, which should be very positive to Sonic and Open RAN in general. And there's a mix of things. I mean, first, the post-Brexit. Second, the post-pandemic. Third, private networks. It's not that easy in other countries to have access to a spectrum for deploying private networks. It's not in Spain, it's not in Italy. Maybe it's easier in France, but it's clearly easier in the UK. So, for example, something I can share with you, We have been awarded inside the West of England Combined Authority, which with one of the DCMS 5G Create projects. This is all about private networks. No MNOs are involved here. It will be deployed around Bristol area, okay? And we are responsible for the deployment of the LTE network, providing the use cases. And this will be Open RAN. It will have an Open RAN concept, okay? So we are starting to play with this towards the private networks to be deployed within the enterprise market, let's say. There's also another element which is clear to all of us, and this is Huawei ban. So the operators, and I perfectly understand that, are sometimes slow in making decisions affecting all the network. Lots of new, potentially new vendors, new spare parts, maintenance is more complicated. It's not easy to make this decision, we all know, okay? I think that probably with the Huawei ban, everything is changing in terms of the plans for the radio, and we are, having these discussions with the operators for our existing sites now in the UK. All the 5G rollout was not stopped, but it's being rethought because they need to ally with other vendors and changing their plans. So also probably the right moment for speaking about this, speaking about disruption. It's the time they are replanning and re-elaborating their rollout plans. So I think we have the right mix of circumstances for us to try and have a successful introduction of Open RAN initiatives in the market.
Okay, thank you. And Frederick, do you have anything to add to
yeah, maybe two quick ones to maybe complement to what Alfonso and Stefano were saying. I think still one of the barriers is certainly a skill mix that is required in the Open RAN environment. We like to see it in three different areas. You know, the RAN expertise is there. I agree with Stefano there. It's people coming from the industry that is developing these technologies. So the know-how of the RAN is there. But I think moving that to cloud environments and adding on top of that the automation, the AI skills, etc., are a mix of skills that I think in our industry as a whole still needs to expand and grow from the end user perspective or the integrator perspective, as well as the vendor perspective. So I think that's still something to keep in mind. And secondly, being a smaller company, I would certainly point to the fact that that investments have not always been easy in the telecom space. We see improvements on that in the context of programs that are being tracked and being emerged also in Europe, where also the UK should benefit from that. There is more traction there for getting more vendors on board of these kind of technologies and development, which in telecom has not been easy over the last decade, at least I would say. So that would certainly help, and we're getting there. I would say there is certainly improvement.
Great, thank you very much. We've got quite a few questions. I'm going to try to ask some of them and invite Joe, Simon and Dritten back in, because some of the questions are directed at them. I'll start with one for Dritten that's come in through the Q&A. How much work has been performed so far in analysing the O-RAN Alliance specifications, and has this covered the published and working group drafts?
Okay, yeah, thanks, Howard. To be direct, we until now we have been focusing as to what has sorry, we just lost your screen just for a second, and it felt like speaking to a matrix situation.
I'm still here.
So Howard, yes, exactly. So Howard, until now we have been focusing on building the facility, and we have moved with a breaknecking speeds. But at the same time, we have been looking during this process at the status of the specification, with a view to set up the experimentation post-launch. So from May onwards. At the same time, and this is very, very important because it is at the core of several questions that people have asked. We will be building the facility in order to run technical engagement with the community for technology development. So some of these things and we would prefer that we become the conveners. It is not a project that we will allocate 3 people from Ofcom and 2 people from Digital Catapult that will be looking only specifically at this and come back with a report. We certainly intend to do that, but the primary focus of Sonic will be if we can create a community and working groups coming together through the testing to effectively look at those specifications, not only when the standards are finished, but also whilst they are being developed, and to try to leverage Sonic to create that capability and that engagement in the UK, Howard. So pretty much something that we are currently consulting on how to take that forward with you. You
Great.
being not just Howard, but more broadly. Howard did it
more directly on that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
yeah. So if I may, just to say that you know, in addition, we are at Ofcom doing some very direct analysis of the detail of the standards, not only from O-RAN Alliance but also adjacent standards bodies, both in terms of the published specs, but also, you know, working with vendors who are up close and personal with the ongoing evolutions of those specs in practice and the challenges they're facing in implementing them. And clearly, much more importantly than having good specs is having true interoperability. And I think, you know, a lot of us who've been involved in previous initiatives for open mobile networks, which have very frankly failed, you know, they haven't failed for a lack of specification. There are other barriers along the way, and that's really where Sonic is focused. Thanks.
Another one for you, Simon, actually. So the Telecoms Infra project has piloted an independent multi-vendor system release validation process for the Open RAN ecosystem to fulfill the role that traditional vendors always performed in their goods out testing of full RAN system releases. Will Sonic play a role to host an SRV process for the UK market or even for a wider market?
Yeah, so we're very plugged in with TIP and coordinating with them on cross-links. We're very aware of TIP's work on sort of a solution group approach where they're bringing together sort of a mix of vendors to provide end-to-end solutions to make that easy. It's very complementary with Sonic, and we'll be looking at closer collaboration over time where appropriate. I mean, one thing I wanted to say though is partly in relation to other questions as well is Sonic isn't attempting to substitute or replace what operators are doing in integrating vendors into their networks or selecting them. Instead, it's smoothing the process, particularly at the earlier stages. As a couple of the questions have said, it's quite hard for new innovators to actually put their solutions into operators' networks. That's not because the operators are resistant to having great new technologies in their networks, but they need them to work with their existing networks. And in the past, that's meant they've had to direct those innovators to their existing vendors, and understandably that, you know, that isn't always what warmly received and can act as a, you know, a blocker or a gatekeeper into bringing those technologies in. Operators have strongly supported open initiatives in the past and the current set of those initiatives, but through the disaggregation and the open interfaces, there's a more direct route for the providers of individual subsystems that are best agreed into operator networks, and that's the bit that Sonic is there to facilitate.
Great, thank you. I haven't got a lot of time left, but I want to ask this one. It's been directed at Dritten, others may jump in. Can a third party connect up their own RAN, e.g. to test in a rural area? Really interesting question and viewpoint.
It's like all of the kind of the test beds. So fundamentally, the answer is both yes and no, because it comes down to the detail in the same way that Simon just mentioned for the mobile network operator. So if that means it comes down to the detail, if that means effectively having a remote connection to a network operations center, yes, of course, we have the capability and the capacity to do that. If that extends in the same way that we are doing in Sonic, where we have, when there is a specific test in a rural area with DUs and RUs, but they will need to be controlled by a centralized unit further away. So a split data center operation, to put it in a very crude terms, that again, it's possible. So, but the question is, It's not that this is a testbed that can be extended in other places. What we are preferring and what we are building about, because it is part of the overlay of testing and instrumentation, is to build representative networks in which people can take their products during the development stage in pre-qualification stages, so that they can test it in a rural environment, in an urban environment, and in an indoor environment. At the moment, we don't have plans immediately for a rural environment, but it is part of the consultation with the industry if that is something that we would want to do. We are very aware that there is a lot of tests happening already in the rural space, but happy to consider how we can help and expand in that space as well.
Okay, excellent. I think I'm going to squeeze in one more of the questions because there has been so many, and then we'll be wrapping up. Is there a priority use case? For example, small cells in building, including neutral host as an early opportunity, that external wide area macro cell?
Shall I start with that one? So no, there isn't. But I think, you know, there are some clear priorities that are sort of, you know, clear in the marketplace that you know, that are fairly obvious. But I think we're in a situation here where, you know, I'm seeing it today, in fact, you know, I think with something like Sonic, when you set up something like this, you can be a victim of your own success. There's huge appetite to do all sorts of things. And so what we're trying to do is construct some input from the stakeholder landscape through governance and engagement and all sorts of things, which actually make sure that we're clear that any sort of, you know, where we spend our limited resources, we make sure they're kind of maximum interest and maximum benefit. We're very keen to do some, you know, we've got plans already to do indoor deployments, so we will be looking at some of those aspects. We are very keen also to do something similar at scale outdoors to cover both of those. But beyond those, I think it's going to be sort of directed by the degree of interest, priority, you know, what we hear from stakeholders really, and we need to set up the approaches by which we can hear those kinds of voices to steer the resources we've got with Sonic.
Excellent, thank you, Joe. I'm going to wrap up because we're almost at time, but thank you so much to all the speakers and all the attendees. It's been really interesting to kind of hear more detail about Sonic and the discussion that we've had around it. I think it's been clear from what everybody has said today that, you know, there is an opportunity to get involved for Sonic. It's for everyone, and being able to sort of co-create and shape the future of the program of work and the needs of the market that Sonic can fulfill is absolutely paramount to the program's success moving forward. So yes, thank you very much. If you want to know more, want to get in touch with any of the team or members, then please do so via the Digital Catapult website. I'll not read out the URL that may pop on the screen in a minute, but it has been put into the chat box if you've still got time to take a look there. But you should find everything you need to get involved and ask questions or take part via the Digital Catapult website. So thank you very much, everybody. And enjoy your days.